Hello, Radiant Church. Pastor Jeremy here. And it's been a while since we've had an episode of From the Pastor's Bookshelf. And there are a few reasons why we haven't done that. Coming out of lockdown, we've been very busy, going to multiple services and just doing a variety of things. It's made it difficult for us to do one of those. But coming in October, we hope to do one, and that's our plan. But until then, I wanted to talk with you about some of the books that I've read this year that haven't shown up on one of our bookshelf episodes that might be worth, that I think would be worth taking a look at. And if you are interested in reading good books, here's some ideas for you. So, what are these books? One is this book called The Time to Build by Yuval Levine. And it's a wonderful book looking at institutions, and specifically how Americans have lost faith in institutions for a variety of reasons. And as such, the loss of faith in institutions and the degradation of institutions in American society is one of the chief reasons why we're experiencing so many of the things that we're experiencing today. Specifically, he talks about how institutions have gone from being something we see as being formative, that they have a role in shaping our character and forming us into the kind of humans we ought to be. Instead, they are just platforms for us in our individualism to showcase our deepest desires. And so he does a great job unpacking that. It's a great assessment of culture, where we are today. He actually wrote it. It came out this year. Another book that came out this year that is an excellent read is The Decadent Society by Ross Douthat. And it looks at another critique of modern society, modern Western civilization, American society, looking at how we are caught in a cycle of stagnation and how where Western civilization for many, many years was really moving forward and making progress in a lot of different ways, how we've become stagnant. And so he takes a really in-depth critique of that, worth the read. Take a look at that. In another area, kind of lighter reading, is The Princess and the Goblin by George MacDonald. Read this a couple months back. Beautiful little book written in the 1800s. George MacDonald does a great job of telling little stories that are really interesting and fun, but throwing in these nuggets of truth that are timeless and for all ages. And this is a story about faith, as well as having courage in the face of evil. So it's an easy read. I guarantee you'll enjoy that. Another one that is just like, reading this is like candy for me. This is Splendid in the Vial by Eric Larson. This is a book about Winston Churchill in Great Britain during the Blitz. And for me, I just can't get enough of Winston Churchill, my favorite statesman. If you want to see what really courageous leadership looks like in dark times, this is a wonderful example. And if you're a huge a Churchill fan like me, here's another book set that I read a couple years ago called The Last Lion. It's an excellent 3-volume set about this just covers the Blitz. This covers his entire life, and it's a fantastic set. So I encourage you to look at that if, like me, you're a Churchill fanboy. Another book that I read this year, or actually I should say finished this year, but I read the lion's share of it this year, is Les Miserables. Excellent classic novel from the 1800s by Victor Hugo. And this is a wonderful story about grace and the impact that grace has on the human soul. His ability to talk about the human soul and how it interacts in the world is just genius. I mean, he's just gifted by God to explain that. The character of Jean Valjean receiving grace and how that transformed his whole life. And also the character of Javert is a guy who's just so trapped in this idea of justice, he cannot receive grace, and it derails him. And many other characters, wonderful read. It's a long book. So if you can get past some of that, then I guarantee you it's one of the best books, in my view, ever written. So take a look at that. Another book that I read this year that by Timothy Keller that is just a beautiful book called Walking with God Through Pain and Suffering. And he does just a beautiful job of walking us through, walking the reader through where does God show up in the midst of our suffering? How does he help us? How does he guide us? How does he bring hope in the midst of darkness? And this is a really grounded way of doing that, especially in a year like this. This is a book that I think everyone would benefit from. This book I actually read at the very end of 2019. It's just a simple little book you read in one evening. It's called Real Christianity by Dale Partridge. And this does a good job of just simply dispelling some of the false notions about what Christianity is about and talking about real Christianity. Excellent read. Encourage you to take a look at that. And lastly, this is a book that I have not read, but am reading. So I'm right in the middle of this book presently, and this is called Political Visions and Illusions. The reason I have it on paper here is because it's on my Kindle, so I'm showing you the book this way. But this is a really beautiful book. Thus far, I've really enjoyed it. And it talks, it's a survey and Christian critique of contemporary ideologies. So he unpacks different ideologies that are present in our in American society today. He looks at liberalism, conservatism, nationalism, democratism, and socialism. And then he looks at those and then he says, how can we transcend those ideologies as opposed to being subservient to them? And he looks at two biblical or historical Christian alternatives to these contemporary ideologies that flood our landscape. And so I definitely hope to do a bookshelf on this book soon. Like I said, I'm in the middle of it, so I'm looking forward to finishing that and sharing more about that with you. So, without any further ado, that's just a little taste of some excellent reads that I've enjoyed over the last few months that you might enjoy as well. So, just a taste here. Hope to see you soon from another episode of From the Pastor's Bookshelf. Blessings on you.